About one third of American adult population has a bachelor's degree or higher today compared to less than 5% in 1940, which is great because we're becoming more educated. And that increases about 10% of the population, a little bit more varied as time goes on, probably to a higher percentage. But about 10% of the population has a master's degree, and then around 1 to 2% of the population has a doctorate or professional doctorate degree. Educational attainment rates vary by gender and race, but the rising costs of higher education have raised questions about whether uh, college is worth the cost. Now, for students who are taking me at the college setting, I teach at a community college. The benefits of attending a community college are that it is more cost effective and you're still getting a great education. It's not like the quality of the education is less. And especially for those first 2 years at a community college, you're taking your general education credits anyways. And if you live in a state that's similar to Tennessee, we have agreements in place where our credits must transfer to our state universities. And we have great relationships with local private institutions where they are very good about accepting our credits. They're still, at the end of the day, going to get their bachelor's degree from their respective institution, but they got it at a lower cost thanks to uh, attending a community college first. But the question still remains about whether college is worth it or not, because especially when it comes to private institutions, I'm not trying to call them out necessarily, but I guess I am in a way. The costs of these private institutions are just enormous nowadays. And you got to think, is that bachelor's degree in varying subjects outside of engineering, nursing, among others, is it truly worth it for the amount of debt you have to go in? This is a good class discussion that we may have. And you're welcome to have that discussion in the comments. But I worry about the future of higher education in that if we price people out of it, I'm going to be curious about how that percentage of bachelor's degree attainment will vary because, of course, we have a high attainment. One third of the population has that bachelor's degree. But what is that going to look like? I don't know. I really don't. There remains a question also about the connection between higher education and the workplace and whether formal education prepares young adults for work. That's another great example as well. Does your bachelor's degree or your degree in general really prepare you for the workforce? I think that's why a lot of internships are encouraged throughout. You can actually get that hands-on learning and realize what your future career is going to look like. I know a lot of degree programs have it embedded to where they have to do an internship to get that experience. That works twofold to have that experience with all on your resume, but also to see what the day to day is going to look like in your future career. So soft skills, as well as the particular knowledge and skills in a college major, are important, especially because they prepare adults to continually learn new things and adapt creatively in their careers and lives. Learning doesn't just stop at whenever you obtain your degree. It is a lifelong process, and that's what college prepares you for. And Holland proposed that there are six personality types: realistic, investigative, artistic, social, enterprising, and conventional, as well as varying types of work environments. Let's look at some theories of early adulthood psychosocial development. Of course, during this stage as well, it's a continuation of the intimacy versus isolation stage where we either go in the direction of establishing those intimate relationships with people, or we may tend to go in the form of isolation. Intimacy involves caring about another and sharing oneself without losing oneself. And the developmental crisis of intimacy versus isolation is impacted by how identity versus role confusion is resolved, with intimate relationships more difficult if one is still struggling with identity. According to Erickson, having some sense of identity is essential for intimate relationship. And in our 20s, intimacy needs may be met in friendships rather than with partners, especially as many young adults postpone making long term commitments to partners. That's very evident in today's world where we understand that we're living longer, but also things are really expensive. And taking on those commitments like a partner and children are delayed because of our economic state, as well as we understand that we have, significant longevity in regard to our life expectancy. We don't need to jump into these long term commitments immediately, like potentially our grandparents or our great grandparents did by getting married and having children at 18, maybe even younger. Friendships between men are more likely to involve sharing information, providing solutions, or a focus on activities, while friendships between women are more likely to focus on sharing weaknesses, emotions, or problems. Differences in friendship approaches can lead to problems with men and women come together. With emerging adulthood, this is a relatively new concept as far as lifespan development psychology because there's been this transition to delaying commitments and people want to go to school a lot of what ways we have to go to school longer just to achieve the career that we want to. That's going to delay commitments to partners, children, the workforce, etc. This theory of emerging adulthood proposes that a new life stage has arisen between adolescence and young adulthood over the past half century. Therefore, a higher proportion of young people than ever before pursue education and training beyond secondary school, making the early 20s a time of immense job instability, especially in the 20s. We're all figuring ourselves out. And for myself, as I make this video, depending on the year you're watching, I'm maybe much older, but right now I'm in my later 20s. I can attest to this of going to school to get my master's degree, delaying a lot of gratification, delaying the workforce as far as getting to where I'm at now. I've held a number of different jobs in my 20s. And ever since I got my job at professor in my mid to late 20s, I got my full time job at the age of 26 as a college instructor. But before that, I had a number of different jobs until that point. But now, I am going to be solidified in this position, I hope, for a long period of time. But before that was a significant time of instability and just trying to find my place in the world. There are five features that distinguish emerging adulthood: identity exploration, instability, as mentioned, self focus, feeling in between adolescence and adulthood. That is normal. You're going to feel if you are a traditionally aged student, typically between the ages of 18 to 20 for college, as far as coming directly from high school, it's okay to feel like sometimes you still feel like a child. And in some cases, you feel like an adult. You feel like you're in between and you have a sense of broad possibilities for the future. You have these ideas of what you'd like to happen for your life. Okay. And emerging adults are still in the process of obtaining an education, like I said, are unmarried and are childless. I can attest to that comparatively to my grandparents who were married at 18 versus myself. I got married at 25, which is still, in today's perspective, considered pretty early comparatively. These same emerging adulthood features have been seen outside the United States and other economically developed countries.